Occupy Fantasy YouTube channel. I am Brian Jester, co-founder here at Occupy Fantasy, and we're here today for some DraftKings MMA DFS, UFC Vegas 30 card best bets, DFS picks, lineup advice, FanDuel, DraftKings, best bets, you name it. We're here to break down the entire slate. We'll be here till about 11:30. Well, actually, we started at 11:30. Welcome. Good morning. We'll be here till about noon Eastern, breaking down the slate, answering your questions. Again, I'm Brian Jester, co-founder at Occupy Fantasy, joined today, like always, by Jake the Snake, Jake McIntyre, owner of MMA DFS.com, writer of the Daily Plug. Jake, what's happening, dude?
What's up, man? Bright and early.
Yeah, we got the 1 p.m. slate today, which from a watching perspective is great. From a content producing perspective, it's god-awful because all the timelines are condensed. We got to make our lineups late last night or early this morning. But again, Gane versus Volkov, a big matchup tonight, 13 fights. We're here to break them down. Again, if you have questions, throw them in the chat. If you have high-level questions, I see a question in the chat already. Who are your core plays for today? Those types of questions can easily be answered by reading our daily plug, occupyfantasy.com, where Jake gives his top plays, low-risk, high-risk contests, lineup strategies, best bets. Or if you want to dig through the weeds, you can read MMADFS.com, where Jake literally breaks down every single fight. So if you want who our best plays are, go read those. We're going to break down the fights here, talk about some details and specifics about lineup construction and DFS in general. So, Jake, let's start with the main event, Gane versus Volkov. I think a pretty exciting matchup. And, there are some main events, obviously, where we want to fade. Some we want to play heavily. What are your thoughts on this main event? Both sides, how are we handling in low-risk and high-risk contests in DFS?
Yeah, so I think that, normally with heavyweights, we think there's more of a chance to bust. But with these guys, they both throw enough volume that I think that you want to have this in pretty much most to all of your high-risk lineups, and you can definitely stack it in low-risk. We've got Gane, who averages a little over 5 significant strikes landed per minute. Volkov is just under 5. So, both guys throw above average volume. So we should see a pretty fun striking battle here. Good chance for a finish, but it's kind of a coin flip according to the odds as to whether or not it goes the distance. But even in a decision, I think that the winner will score well. You can just look at Gane's last fight. I think that's probably his floor. He still scored decently. He didn't go crazy, but if that's his floor, then he should easily top 100 if this goes to a decision. Still be useful. He did notably go 2 for 14 on takedowns in his last fight, so that makes Volkov a little more interesting on FanDuel. Just because there's, it would make sense to try to attack Volkov on the ground again because that is his weakness, as we saw against Blades. So either Gane could land a bunch of takedowns or Volkov could defend a bunch of takedowns, which makes both of them more interesting on DraftKings for Gane and FanDuel for Volkov. I think recency bias is going to have a lot of people on Volkov here. Everyone saw that Gane fight against Rosenstruck, and everyone hated it. And we're like, oh, this guy doesn't want to throw punches. Like,
Would
boring.
you up against Rosenstruck? I wouldn't. I wouldn't be out there throwing heavy volume against that guy. We saw what happened to Sakai when that happened.
Right, and especially if you have a lead, like why would he take a bunch of risks?
Right.
So I agree with him. It was pretty funny if you watch the Gane post-fight interview from that fight. They were like, they quoted Dana White, and they were like, Dana said it wasn't a very exciting fight. Like, you won, but that's it. And there was totally something lost in translation. And Gane's French. He's just like, oh yeah, oui. It was great, good fight. And then they're like, no. And he's like, ooh.
That's not what we said, actually. So
yeah. So I think he's going to be more motivated to put on a good show here. And it's Volkov's still super dangerous. He's coming off back-to-back round 2 KOs. But he's not Rosenstruck. He's not that guy that's just going to throw one punch and finish you. He's normally more of a volume guy that wears you down. So I think we see more of a high-volume striking match here with both guys being aggressive. So what's your take on it? Like, what's... how heavy are you going in tournaments in terms of the main event exposure?
Yeah, I wish it was a slate where I could take a clear stand. I could fade one of the fighters, fade both fighters, play them heavily. I'm like, meh, I guess I got to play these guys. I'm not super excited about them. Volkov's price makes me have to play him basically if he wins. The line's moving in his favor. And there's a bunch of other fighters I like. So, if it was a less volume main event or a less exciting main event, I would certainly have less of these guys. I just think that, it's really tough given their prices for them to miss out. We would need like an early knockout or one fighter to be leading the fight and the other guy knocks him out in round 4 or 5. I don't know. It's tough to miss. So I do have a decent amount of exposure, like 70% overall, which, if I was playing smaller contests, I would have a lot more. But in a high-risk contest, high-risk environment, praying for outliers. And then we do have a question, and this is definitely for you, Jake. Michael asks, Volkov put on 20 pounds more than usual for this fight. Any thought on how that could make an impact here?
So he's actually been doing that for the last 2 fights. He had been fighting around like 245 to 250 up until that loss to Blades. And I think after getting taken down 14 times in that fight, he was like, all right, I got to bulk up so wrestlers can't take me down. So his last 2 fights, he's fought at like 264, 265 pounds. And he's probably looked like the best version of himself. He's gotten back-to-back round 2 KOs after, I believe, all of his fights prior to that in the UFC had made it past the second round. So I don't think that really changes much, because this is his 3rd fight fighting at 265. But he definitely looks good there, and he's looked harder to take down since he moved up to 265. And he still looks super powerful, still has good speeds. I mean, Volkov's a great fighter. Personally, I like Gane here. I think he's a little more explosive, a little bit quicker, a little bit lighter on his feet. So I think he'll be able to move around and kind of pick Volkov apart. Volkov is taller, but Gane actually has a 1-inch reach advantage.
Yeah, after getting manhandled by Blades, he's like, man, fuck this. I'm not letting that happen again. So he put on some weight.
Right. Right.
All right, Christian has a question about some underdogs to play, and we'll get there in a second. He asked Daniel Pineda, Ike Villanueva, Jai Herbert. So I think let's just get it out of the way. We talked about the main event. Now let's talk about the fighter Jake wants to talk about for the next 20 minutes. And for those of you who read the Daily Plug, OccupyFantasy.com, you know that the cover boy is a very sacred tradition. Trying to find a fighter that Jake likes from his tape watching, that the odds like, that our Occupy model likes, kind of a trifecta play. If you listen to our PGA streams or read our PGA stuff, the trifecta when everything aligns. We try to put those fighters as the cover photo just to indicate to you that you should have a lot of exposure to them. This was the first time that Jake tried to convince me that we should have the lowest priced fighter on the slate as the cover boy. And if the model agreed, I would certainly be on board. But this is definitely a contextual spot. It's a qualitative data spot, a tape watching spot. So I'm gonna go over to the plug, Jake, and please tell me why Jai Herbert. Again, I'm on board with you. I'm playing him a bunch. Tell me why Jai Herbert is your favorite play on the slate.
All right, man. This guy is an absolute beast. Super fast hands, really good jab, lightning fast right cross that he follows it up with. He's coming off his UFC debut where he actually looked pretty good. Most of the fight was spent in the clinch. It was against Trinaldo, who, no one looks good against Trinaldo. Jai dropped him in the second round after spending most of the first round in the clinch. And then he comes out in the third round, and Trinaldo catches him with, a left hand to the forehead that, it's like a cartoon, delayed reaction where he falls backwards. He's out. I mean, it wasn't a good look. And normally we don't like guys coming off KOs, but he looked really, really good before that. Now he's going against Renato Moicano, who has been finished in 3 of his last 4 fights, all by knockout. Yep, I was double checking. All by knockout. The last 2 in the first round. One before that was just at the beginning of the second round. Prior to his recent loss, Jai had 6 straight wins, 5 KOs, 3 in the first round. He's only been to 1 decision in 12 pro fights. I mean, I would have liked this guy at any price. He could have been 9,000. I would have liked him right here. He comes in as the cheapest fighter on the slate. He didn't score well last time, so his ownership should still be relatively low. His numbers are bad because the whole fight was spent in the clinch. The projection systems aren't going to be high on him. He's really similar to Choi last week, except for he's a dog, The projection systems hadn't cut up on Choi. They haven't cut up on Jai either because he's only had the 1 fight. So his numbers look terrible. Under 2 significant strikes landed per minute. He can throw volume. Right. Don't get it twisted. He can definitely throw volume. He's got really, really good striking. His biggest weakness is the grappling, and Moicano is probably going to try to get him down and look for a round 1 submission. So, I mean, that's how he fails here. But if it stays on the feet, I think he gets a round 1 KO. I love him on both sides. I'm interested to see how highly owned he'll be. We haven't projected just over 20%, but I feel like sharp people are going to be on him. Just looking at Moicano's recent results and Herbert's results before he joined the UFC. He was like a Cage Warriors champion. So, I mean, he had like a good background. He wasn't fighting like bums before he joined the UFC. I mean, this dude's super legit. He's easily my favorite play on the slate and definitely my favorite underdog. So, any underdog questions where it's Herbert or anyone else, it's going to be Herbert for me.
And you know what? The sad thing about it is we got screwed on a pricing perspective. And it's a rare case where we wish a fighter was more expensive.
Right.
Because if you, again, and this is how a lot of ownership shakes out this way. And if you look at sharp players or sharp DFS pros, not necessarily the MMA specialists, but people who play a ton of DFS, they're pros, they play all the sports. When they play MMA DFS, the ownership is concentrated on guys whose money lines are mispriced. Basically, how you can do that, I'm going to show you here in the model. And if you just sort by DraftKings salary, and you compare the money lines and see where one sticks out. So like the top example is Julia Villa, who's minus 345 today, and the fighter priced above her and priced below her is has a lower probability of winning. You look at Jai Herbert, two guys above him have a lower win probability. So by nature, he's quote unquote mispriced and gets a little more ownership. If he was priced at 7,200, 7,300 appropriately, I don't think we would see him get over 20%.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that the mispricing will definitely boost his ownership up, like 4 or 5%, which is annoying. I mean, I don't like it. Like I said, I would be fine paying more for him, but I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah, it is what it is. Again, 20% still not highly owned. Still a guy we can get plenty of exposure to, and I agree, probably the best underdog choice to break the slate. Jake, I guess it's similar to McKinney, right? A couple slates ago where he's about 20% owned, but we both really liked him to get a round one finish.
Yeah, I mean, totally. I was comparing him to Choi, but McKinney makes total sense too. Like a guy that, really, really good striking coming into a matchup where, most people don't really know what to expect. But yeah, totally agree.
Cool. All right, let's talk about some fights we need to target. I see we have another question in the chat about who are our core plays. Again, read the daily plug, OccupyFantasy.com. Eagles, I know you're a member. If you ask us who our core plays are, they're going to be who Jake wrote up in the plug. His favorite low-risk plays, favorite high-risk plays. The ones he puts a lot of effort into are the guys we're playing a bunch of. So, all right, Jake, fights we want to target. Fights we like both sides. We think it could produce a high DFS score outside the main event. Who are you looking at?
So, I mean, I think the first one's pretty obvious. I mean, it's got to be, the GOAT Prachnio versus
yes.
versus the future top contender Ike Villanueva.
This is the lowest level fight we'll probably see in a while.
Oh my god! Yeah, this would be a low level fight on like an Alaskan fight card. I mean, this is insane that this is under the UFC banner. But
I mean, we should see a high DFS score, I would think.
Oh yeah, I mean, we got two guys that are terrible. So like, Prachnio has absolutely no chin. Villanueva, he's been finished in 2 of his last 3 fights. He's not a great striker, but he is coming off a KO of probably the third amigo of the worst light heavyweights in the division. Can't remember that guy's name right now, but you know what I'm talking about, who's been knocked out like in 4 straight fights, 3 in the first round. It's Vincius Moreira.
Yeah.
There's no way he's in the UFC anymore. I mean, 4 straight early losses. That was like the only guy I could knock out other than maybe Marcin Prachnio. So the UFC is definitely doing Ike some favors, just giving him literally the worst people in the division, one after another. So yeah, I'm sort of on Ike's side, but I think all the leverage is playing Prachnio here. I don't think anyone, I think he was 14% owned when he was min priced in his last fight, and now he's one of the most expensive fighters. I mean, people are just going to laugh at that. He's going to be, around 15% owned. Tons of leverage, man. Tons of leverage. And Ike hasn't been in a fight that lasted longer than 6 minutes, I want to say, in his last 7 fights. So
this fight's
good spot.
It's going to end early, right? Or more than likely. Because they both could get tired and it's a slot fest late. But
right.
Again, Prachnio, and again, this goes back to the mispricing question. He's mispriced in the other direction where he's a little overpriced compared to his money line. But again, this is a fight where we're targeting the opponent. We're targeting his knockout potential. I mean, it wouldn't surprise either of us that again, this is not a high bar, but for Prachnio to score his most DraftKings points he's ever scored, which Jake, in his first 3 fights, he combined for 12 points. So not really saying much.
Yeah, right. When you have 3 straight round 1 KO losses, you're not gonna score a lot.
But you're playing Ike too, though, right? Because
I have more Ike. Like the tape watching, it's just so hard to play Prachnio, but I'm playing him from a pure leverage, game theory perspective. But I think Ike has a better chin. which makes me think he has a better chance for a finish. But I mean, both guys are so bad. Like either guy could definitely finish the other. Like my brain exploded trying to pick a winner in this fight when I was writing it up. Like I'm just going back and forth. I think I had to watch like both of their most recent fights like 3 times each, just like over and over again. Like who's gonna like?
That's torture.
They're so
man.
bad. Oh my god, they're so bad. Like it was really hard to.
All right.
What
What about fighters that you think are decent that could produce a high score?
So just like in general, single fighters or fights to target?
Fights
still?
to target. This, I mean, in general, this is a relatively low level card. But
Yeah.
all right. So just so you don't have to talk about Pacquiao and Ike anymore. Any other fights that you want to target both sides of?
All right. Yeah, sorry. I got hung up on that one. So I am playing a little bit of Moicano just to hedge all my Herbert stuff. So, I mean, that is a fight that I'm heavily exposed on because if Moicano does win, I think it comes with a round 1 submission and he puts up a big score. And then obviously I have a ton of Herbert. So that's a fight that I'm targeting. I think that the Barcelos-Valiev fight is sort of interesting. They're both so good that it could definitely bust. But I do think it's going to be a high-volume fight with some grappling mixed in. So there's a pretty decent chance that the winner scores well, even in a decision. And then the Kennedy-Marquez fight, I think Kennedy's super interesting on FanDuel. I think he could get like 10 or 15 takedowns defended. And I think he wins the fight and a good chance he gets a knockout. But if Marquez is able to get him to the ground and have another super grappling heavy performance, then he's going to be a good DraftKings play. But I'm definitely on Kennedy's side there. I think Marquez is terrible. I think Kennedy can knock him out. Kennedy's like just such a raw fighter, but he's so strong. He can just like get up when he gets taken down. Like he just gets up. Like he's so strong. He just kind of pushes people off of him. And he's got a really good takedown defense. It's like 78%. So I think that it's going to be Marquez nonstop looking for takedowns and Kennedy just like elbowing him in the head until he gets a knockout. And then a couple more, like Rosa Janes is sort of interesting. I think Janes is going to push the pace and force Rosa to do something. Like normally I never play Rosa, and I don't have a ton here, but I think Janes gets a round 1 KO or gets finished or gets completely dominated. So that's going to kind of force the action there. The first fight of the night, sort of interesting. I think we see a late round KO there between Hadzovich and Medeiros. So I don't have a ton of exposure, but I think it's sort of an under the radar. Both guys are going to be low owned, and I think the winner has a sneaky chance to land a round 2 or round 3 KO and get a good number of strikes and put up a decent score. So I kind of like that one too. Are there any other ones that you're looking at that I didn't mention?
I'm kind of surprised you didn't mention the Feely fight. I know you're high on Feely, and we'll talk about him in a second. I know Pineda is somewhat popular, and he's going to push the pace. You and I were talking just before we started recording. Daniel Pineda basically said he was in the UFC before, got cut, now he's back. And when he came back, he basically said, I'm here to bonus hunt, right? I'm going to make fights exciting. Right. I'm trying to get that bonus. So, which is great for us from a DFS perspective. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. Let's see. If you guys have questions, again, we're here till 12 Eastern, so noon Eastern, 12 more minutes. If you have any specific questions, throw them in the chat. We're going to talk about low-owned fighters and our best bets here to close out the show. If you like what you see so far, make sure you click subscribe. Get notified whenever we go live or upload any new videos. Again, I think I said this last week, like 40 or 50% of our viewers who watch are subscribed. So like half of you who are watching aren't subscribed. Make sure you do that. And give us a thumbs up if you want to see more UFC videos. Lets us know that we should continue to make more. All right, so let's talk about low-owned fight. Oh, you have something else to say, Jake?
I was just going to say, the reason I didn't mention Philly Pineda in the fights that I'm targeting is I have a ton of Philly, but I'm actually not playing that much Pineda. I think he's going to be popular, and I think it's a really tough spot for him to get a finish. So I was sort of on the fence about including that, but I'm actually under the field on Pineda, so it's hard to say it's a fight to target. It's more of a fighter to target in Philly for me.
Okay, so let's talk about that. As you know, if you've listened to the show, you read the plug, you know that we want to get at least one, usually 2 low-owned fighters in all of our lineups. And there's a couple good spots this week. We talked about Herbert. He's 20%, 22%. Doesn't necessarily qualify. We talked about Pacquiao. He certainly qualifies. And then Andre Fili's probably the best low-owned play on the board. Wouldn't you think, Jake?
Totally, man. I think he's a great play. You know, he's been to decisions in 9 of his last 10 fights. Hasn't scored well in those. You know, he hasn't broken 100. He scored decently in the decisions, but I think that the field's going to be low on him because he hasn't been a big scorer, and this is a perfect ceiling spot for him. I mean, Pineda's going to force the action. He's bonus hunting. Philly is coming off that smothering loss. He's pissed off. He's trying to get back in the winning column. He's talked about trying to fight more. He thinks he could be still thinks he could be a future contender. I think he's going to try to prove something here.
Yeah, I'm a big fan too. And again, at just 18% ownership projected on DraftKings, he's a guy that we're playing a ton of. Any other low owned fighters that we haven't mentioned so far that you're playing a decent amount of?
I think we already mentioned pretty much. Yeah, we already mentioned all my guys. I mean, the favorites I'm looking at, they're low owned, are Philly, Hadzovich, Praknio, and the dogs are Herbert, Janes, Medeiros. I mean, Janes is so gross. He's coming off like 3 straight losses, but this is his easiest matchup yet. And I mean, he's moving back to 145. I mean, he's not good, but if he wins, he's going to get another round 1 KO, in my opinion. So you have to have some level of exposure. I mean, at least the 12% that the odds indicate that he gets the round 1 finish. I think that those odds are a little bit low.
Me too.
So I think that you probably want to have like 20% Janes or something, just like, because if he does win, he's going to score well.
I mean, he's the type of dog that you want to get exposure to, right? Like, he has round 1 knockout potential. Could actually lead the slate in scoring. Definitely an underdog you want to get exposure to. So, let's see here. All right, no questions. If you guys have any specific questions, let's get them in the chat. We talked about low-owned plays. We talked about fights we want to target. We talked about the main event. Jake, the prizes aren't great on FanDuel this week. So not too much discussion needs to be said about the MVP spot over there. But maybe we should talk about the cover boy, who is Shavkat Rakhmonov, who is making his second UFC fight, first UFC fight, got a guillotine choke. He's undefeated. I mean, look at this dude, just like pure, no nonsense. All he wants to do is fight people in his entire life. Shavkat Rakhmonov, massive height advantage in this fight. What's the reason we decided to put him as the cover of the Daily Plug?
It is funny. We made it 25 minutes without mentioning the cover boy.
Yeah. The honorary cover boy was Herbert, and he got talked about for a bunch. So.
Right. I mean, we all know who I wanted to talk about, but yeah. So Shavkat, man, this guy he's massive. Huge dude. 41% chance to get a finish. It is sort of a tougher matchup. He's going against an absolute tank in Michel Prazeres, who's never been finished in his career. But he's about to turn 40 years old, coming off a 2-year layoff for a steroid suspension. So we don't really know what we're going to get out of Prazeres. He used to be good, man. He beat Burns like 5 years ago in a decision. But his last fight, like, he totally gassed out at the end. He didn't look great. I mean, that was 2 years ago. Like, I can't imagine he's gotten better. He's super old. I mean, there's so many red flags with Prazeres, and Shavkat just looked great in his last fight. He got a round 1 guillotine submission, so he didn't get any takedowns, didn't get any knockdowns, still scored 100 points on DraftKings, more than that on FanDuel. I mean, he looks really good, man. He looks like a good grappler, good striker, like one of the best chances on the slate to get a finish. He's like 8 feet taller than Prazeres. I mean, the dude just looks like a beast, so
could you really check any more boxes against Prazeres? Like, all right, way older fighter, coming off a layoff. Yep. Off a steroid suspension. I guess it could have been short notice. That'd have been the holy grail. But not much in favor of Prazeres in this fight except for the experience.
Right, and a huge line move too. I mean, Shavkat, like, depending on where you look, like just this week on MGM, 50-cent line move in his favor. I mean, literally everything is going in Shavkat's favor. Nothing is going in Prazeres' favor. I mean, it's hard not to love him here.
Hey Sports Fans is asking, will there be first fight chaos? I know you mentioned a little bit, Jake, about Hadzovich and Medeiros, but whether it's a trend or whether it's people actually trying to set the tone for the event, we have seen some first fight chaos pretty heavily in pretty much all year in the first fights of the night.
I mean, it's so rare that we don't see first round chaos, first fight chaos. I totally think that we're going to see a finish there. Hadzovich is completely terrible off his back. But Medeiros is in no position to take advantage of that. I mean, he does have a few submission wins, but I want to say he has like 1 takedown his entire UFC career. He's been in like 14 UFC fights. Medeiros is coming off 3 straight losses. Hadzovich is coming off 2 straight losses. I mean, both guys are bad, but both guys also are pretty decent at finishing. I think Medeiros, he has like a 5-inch reach advantage. He's a little bit faster, throws more volume. On the other side, Hadzovich is more powerful, so probably a little bit better chance to get a knockout. I think we see a round 2 knockout in that one. I'm leaning Hadzovich, but honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if it was Medeiros. I mean, it's kind of a lower level fight at this point, with Medeiros is towards the end of his career. Hadzovich is just sort of a meddling fighter. But yeah, I think we do see a decent score, pretty good chance there. But I mean, it's always hard when you got guys like this, and both guys are coming off long layoffs too. Like, been 16 months and like 15 months, something like that for the two guys. I mean, both guys haven't fought in over a year.
They were trying to get this fight booked, weren't they? I remember.
Yeah, it was like a month ago or something, and then Hadzovich, like the day of the event, got some virus and had to pull out at like 5 hours or something before the slate was supposed to start.
God, that was miserable. Okay,
yeah.
Let's see. All right, quick question here from Andres. Jake, I have a feeling you're not gonna be too excited about either side here, but Yancey and Bozer or Rosa and Wells, if you had to pick one of those pairings.
Definitely Yancey and Bozer. I think Bozer's a decent player. I think he's going to be lower owned. OSP's moving up to heavyweight for just the second time in his career, and he lost the first time to Rothwell. I kind of like Bozer here. Coming off 2 losses. He just fought 3 weeks ago. But, like, if you've watched any of his interviews, dude is pissed off. Like, he's going to come to fight. Like, he lost 2 decisions, and he thought he won both of them. And, I mean, it's definitely hard to argue on the last one. Like, it all came down to the first round. Like, Latifi took him down and did nothing for 2 minutes, and Bozer outstruck him on the feet, and that's what decided the fight. And on that day, the judges, they awarded the points to the takedown. And Bozer was like, I almost finished this guy in the second round. Like, I don't know what you guys want me to do. Like, I think he's going to come out swinging. OSP's coming off a round 2 KO. I like Bozer, man. He's kind of a good value play on DraftKings. He's a little more expensive on FanDuel because the pricing came out later, and the line moves 35 cents in his favor.
Yep. So there you go. All right, we got about 3 minutes left here. We'll get to our stream parlay. Jake, I want you to take 1 minute to answer this question from Wig in the chat. Could you talk about the Valiev and Barcelos fight? We briefly talked about it as far as it's 2 high-level fighters. Both guys have high upside, but it could be one of those fights where their high levels cancel each other out and we see a lower score. But Jake, take 30 seconds or so just to briefly discuss the matchup and ways it succeeds, ways it fails.
Yeah, so I really like Barcelos, man. He's really good. Like, he's on like a 9-fight winning streak, 16-1 in his career, and he's scored well even in like his recent decision. I'm just pulling up DraftKings right now. So his first 3 fights, he got late round finishes, like late round 2 finishes, and then a round 3 finish. They all scored 110 or more DraftKings points, and then he's coming off a high volume decision win where he scored 96 DraftKings points. I think we could see something similar to that. Valiev is super tough, but he did get knocked out in the second round of his UFC debut by a short notice fighter.
Doesn't count because of weed though, Jake.
Yeah. It never happened. It totally never happened. Erased from the record. But I mean, so we've seen him get finished. And, Barcelos is coming off like back-to-back fights against dudes that super good. Whereas Valiev, I don't even know how to say this guy's name. He's coming off a win over Martin Day. Martin Day is terrible. So, and before that, it was another short notice replacement. Both of his fights have been short notice replacement fights. They were actually at 140 and 145 pounds, and this fight's going to be at 135. So we might get a slightly different look, but I think it's going to be a great fight. It's going to be super high volume. Both these guys throw a lot of strikes. And they both can grapple, too. So it'll be kind of interesting to see who wants to take it to the ground. I don't think Barcelos will be scared at all to go to the ground.
Right.
I'm not sure if Valiev will want to do it, but I don't know. I mean, like you said, I think they could cancel each other out, and we could see a 70-point decision. But I think more likely we see 90-plus points for the winner on DraftKings.
Definitely. And if you're just thinking about it from a game theory perspective, right, that means a lot more to Valiev if he gets 90 points compared to Barcelos. But again, it should be a fight that should produce a high score, and it probably will be one of the best fights just to watch on the night.
Yeah, I think fight of the night right there.
Outside of Pragnell and Villanueva, of course. So,
right.
All right, let's finish the show with our stream parlay of the week. We're still hunting for our first W for the stream parlay. But Jake, I feel really good about it this week, and I feel like you know where I'm going to go with this bet. Do you know my side already?
I think you know my side.
I know. So let's. All right, you guess my side. I'll guess your side.
Deal. I think you're going Shavkat inside the distance.
Oh no! I just talked about the fight I like. Come on, who am I?
All right, fine. You're going Pragnell Villanueva under 1.5 rounds.
Thank you. So my leg of the parlay.
Is that it?
Yeah, of course it is. Yeah, Pragnell Villanueva under 1.5 rounds. One side of the parlay. Jake's obviously going with Herbert inside the distance.
Should I go inside the distance so we actually win, or should I go round 1 KO so we can chase all our money?
Well, Occupy Fantasy is about bankroll management and contest selection. So I think we should let's go for round 1 for sure.
All right, just because we got to get better odds there. I mean, if we go like a 340, and I mean, what's yours, like 150? That's not enough
Yeah.
to catch up. So we need that plus 800 in there. Let's go Herbert round one win at plus 800. I just saw it at MGM.
Okay.
Slightly better odds than in the plug. We had it at 750. That was on FanDuel. I think we go round one win over round one KO because the round one wins plus 800. He does have a sub. The round one KO is plus 850.
It's not worth it, right?
It's not worth it. So round one win plus 800 and Pacquiao Villanueva under 1.5 rounds at plus 150. Let me figure out what that's going to be real quick.
Sounds good. While you figure that out, I'm going to close out the show here. If you guys like what you saw, make sure you click the subscribe button here on YouTube. Get notified whenever we go live or upload any new videos. Give us a thumbs up if you like the UFC content. Want us to continue to make more. If you want to join our Discord channel, just click the join button right below this video. Talk to me, Jake, other Occupy staff, other OccupyFantasy.com members about all daily fantasy sports. Jake, you have the numbers yet?
Yeah, it should be plus 2150 as long as you can find the odds at plus 800 and plus 150. I'm pretty sure that MGM has them there. FanDuel, it might be a tick lower. It might be plus 750 and like plus 142. But either way, it's going to be about 21 to 1. So you can catch up right here.
Perfect. If you want to make those bets, if you live in a legal sportsbook state, make sure you click the betting link at the top of OccupyFantasy.com. We got a lot of sign-up bonuses with legal sportsbooks that we partnership with. And you can get sign-up bonuses, free bets. You can place these parlays and other bets that Jake put in the plug with free money. Can't get any better than that. One final announcement before we get out of here. We are doing a giveaway, $500 in DraftKings gift cards or a Scotty Cameron putter. Your choice now. We've added another prize to the contest. Free to enter. All you have to do is enter your email address. The link is in the description below. We're giving back to the community. Go join that contest. It's a free roll. Go do it. Check out Jake's work, MMA DFS.com, where he writes the sheet, talks about every single fight on the slate, stats for every single fighter, betting and DFS implications, plus the archive. Go back and look at old slates. MMADFS.com is where you can check that out. Follow Jake on Twitter at DFS_MMA. You can follow us at Occupy Fantasy. Read the daily plug, which Jake writes, top plays, lineup strategies, best bets for each UFC DFS slate. The UFC DFS model ranks every fighter on FanDuel and DraftKings. Jake, I think I got it all. Any final thoughts?
I really like the slate, man. Good luck to everyone out there. Let's see some winning screenshots later. I think it's going to be a good one as long as Herbert gets that KO. If not, you guys might not see me for a couple weeks.
Well, we actually won't see you for a couple weeks anyways, right? Aren't we off next week with 4th of July?
Yeah, that was the joke.
God damn it. Sorry, Jake. All right, guys. For Jake, I'm Brian. Appreciate everyone listening. Good luck tonight. We'll talk to you soon.